Welcome to Keep What You Earn, your judgment and jargon-free zone for entrepreneurs of all levels. Get ready to learn how to scale your business, save money in taxes, and create a business that grows your wealth. If it feels like the financial side of business is like eating your vegetables, well then think of this podcast as the ranch dressing to make the process a little more enjoyable. My name is Shannon Weinstein. I'm a CPA and business owner on a mission to simplify money and empower others through knowledge. I hope this episode inspires you to take action, but remember that the information we share is for educational purposes only and is not individual tax advice. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start the show. Hey, welcome back to the Keep What You Earn podcast. I'm really excited to be in the car again with Jason for this episode. Say hi, Jay.
Hello.
And we're on our way back from Boston after some lovely time with friends after Christmas. And we can't have a car ride without talking a little bit of business. So wanted to take this opportunity to record some of this conversation. And the topic that came up was getting away from founder-led sales. And Jason, what do you mean by that?
Well, we were out to dinner last night with my best friend, and he sold his company quite well. I mean, it's all moved beyond a small business, definitely a medium company. And they have an issue, though, where they've never been able to develop a sales staff. The founders do all the sales. They have the client relationships, and they've brought in salespeople. They've paid base salaries and, quite comfortable base salaries of low to mid six figures plus commissions and residuals, and just have not been able to develop, train, and rely on their sales staff. These folks went out and didn't bring any business back. And they spent lots and lots of money for no result. And that was a topic we were discussing as we were finishing off the bottle of wine last night.
But do you think it's the salespeople aren't hungry enough? Or do you think, what do you think that issue is?
Well, definitely your salespeople need to be hungry. You need to hire the right salespeople. There are salespeople that hunger for things more than just the dollars in their check. And they want to be the top dog, the number one performer in the business. There's a chip on their shoulder and a need there that must be satisfied. There's that hunger that just goes beyond, I need this much money to make my mortgage payment.
Yeah.
But the issue that I think they were having in his business in particular, and something that I see across the board, I was in home sales for almost 20 years. Their companies don't have a process that salespeople need to follow, and they don't have a way for the salesperson to transfer that belief.
What do you mean by that?
So let's start with the process. A sales process should not be from the hip. It needs to be a formalized process, step by step. Too often, salespeople will jump into something and talk about a specific need that they think the customer has, rather than take through the whole process and have time to truly evaluate the needs and pain points and then sell accordingly. For instance, I was in basement waterproofing. A poor salesperson is going to come in, oh, you have water in the floor, let me solve it by this. That's probably not the pain point. That's the smallest dollar figure typically for sale. And, you're never going to be the cheapest option. Cheapest options do nothing. So you have to build a value. And that comes from truly evaluating the needs and what's the driving factor. What is the pain that the customer is feeling, and how is your product or service going to alleviate that?
Yeah.
So that's number one, is your assessment. And then number two is having a process for the delivery. And you're going to start off by sounding a bit robotic, but there's a reason why timeshare salesmen are successful. they have a script and they follow it all the way through. You think of it, again, it's called a pitch. Think of it like a baseball player throwing a pitch. Your pitcher doesn't take the mound and decide to throw right-handed to one batter, left-handed to the next batter, and underhand to the third batter of the inning. You won't be able to get consistent results. Maybe they're a phenomenal right-handed pitcher, but they're going to get shellacked when they lob one in underhand. The goal of a pitch is to have a consistent method to get consistent, predictable results across the board. You should know with your sales team every time they interact with a customer what that average is going to bring back. In my business, we call that how much dollars per door knock. Every customer they met with, every time they knocked on the door, I knew that was going to be between $1,600 to $2,000 in revenue per door knock.
Yep. And I mean, it's really hard though with a lot of people that are starting their own businesses. I mean, myself included. I don't have a sales team, right? So I'm going to be selling. I'm the person that shows up on the sales calls, at least for now. And there's a lot of people out there starting their own businesses and don't necessarily, like, even if they have the sales team, they're still taking calls.
Right. Well, then you need to at least formalize your own internal process. Mm-hmm. Because I can promise you're not getting consistent results from every sales call you run.
Right.
You are not able to give your A game every single time, day in and day out. Life happens. So having a formalized process, even if it's just the founder, still allows for that, the predictable result. And again, down the road allows for growth.
Yeah.
And it's easy to start out in this, especially today. There's so many better tools than having to use a cassette recorder. But record a few calls, record a few sales calls as a founder. See what you're talking about. See how you sound. And we all hate listening to the sound of our own voice, but start with that and say, boy, did I gloss over something? Did I really not tell my business story? Did I miss my elevator pitch? Can I make anything a little more succinct? Do I have to elaborate on any other points here? Start with that and also write it down.
Welcome to Connecticut.
Using PowerPoint is old school, but it works because a lot of people are visual learners. And when you're selling, you're educating. So you have to come across to your consumer in every which way possible. For those visual learners, you have a presentation. For those audio learners, you're speaking. For the people that need to experience it, let them touch and feel. Every which way you communicate, every different media you use is another opportunity to get the sale, to hook that lead.
Yeah. What about, I mean, I've struggled with this. Like, I want to make the calls shorter so that they're less, I feel like meeting with someone for an hour plus is a lot for, say, a sales or discovery call. But there's a lot you have to fit in. What's your take on, like, the ratio of speaking and listening, right, and how much to fit into a call? Multiple calls and so.
It's very cliche, but sales isn't speaking, it's listening.
Right.
So a lot of the calls should be designed to elicit responses from the lead, from the prospect.
Right.
There is a time in which you then need to tell your story.
Right.
But you start by asking questions, and again, that's designed to funnel the responses down. You need a form. We, going way back, carbon copy intake forms to get the pain points. We were asking questions. Again, how long the problem existed, the severity of the problem, what bothered the customer the most. But again, we were funneling it with some forced choice. wasn't asking an open-ended, so what bothers you the most? What bothers you the most? Is it the water on the floor? Is it the nagging smells? Is it the inconvenience of having to get down here and deal with it? The destruction of your property? And again, all of those are designed to elicit the pain memories. In your business, Shannon, a lot of that could be what bothers you the most about your current situation. Is it the lack of visibility into your finances, the lack of comprehension in your statements? Is it the uncertainty, the questions that are left open from your current provider?
Yeah.
What is the reason for our call today? And you funneled it down to a point where you can then check that off, file it away, and come back to it when you go to close.
But very true. And by the way, stay tuned for that, getting added to my question list pretty soon. Thank you, Jay.
This is what I do.
I know. But we were talking with your friend last night on his company and the struggles they were having because they just weren't closing. And I think you're right. There's a process needed, but there's also, you got to be careful too when you're structuring your commissions and your compensation that you're motivating people, right?
Correct, but you have to be fair.
Totally.
Everybody has to win. You're not out to win the relationship. You don't want your salesman out to win the relationship. It needs to be fair. So put on your sales hat, give it thought, give it a lot of thought as to what's going to be fair, what's going to elicit the proper behaviors. If everything is too commission oriented, you get commission breath. The salesperson is not doing a consultative sale, but rather a high pressure sale. Customers see right through that, and you lose out. If you don't have enough of an incentive, the salesman is never going to ask for the business, and you lose out. I put a lot of effort into our commission program, and when I added a base plus commission, whereas majority of the home improvement industry was always 100% commission, I also looked at structuring different incentive tiers for dollars sold per month, or you can do it by items sold, average deal, average per lead. You have a metric that you want to really drive home.
Right.
That's what you build your commission structure around.
What KPIs, basically, whatever you want to track and what you want to win at, you should reward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you're really concerned about a ratio of a ROI for every sales call, then that needs to be your commissionable event or your bonus event. Do it as the bonus structure is tied to that versus something like gross sales or gross number of sales calls run.
Yeah, that's what I'm suggesting to clients is some type of quarterly KPI tracking and almost like a report card. And depending on how accountable certain people are to those metrics, issuing some type of bonus or some type of compensation connection to those goals.
I was a smaller home improvement company, but with 6 salesmen, half of whom, or more than half, were doing over $1 million a year, which is, the gold standard in home sales. We were doing weekly commission checks, and monthly bonuses.
Yep.
That was tying up hours per week in commissions. But I would gladly tie up hours per week in commissions and that extra work, knowing that the business was doing phenomenal and the salespeople were all making money.
Yeah.
The worst problem to have in that situation is, boy, I got to give out more money. I mean, that's everybody wins and you want to win.
Yeah, but I think people are afraid of, this is the big fear I've seen is people hiring a lot of salespeople and worried that it's going to be a sunk cost if they can't sell, or if it's, if they're paying that base, right? Or the salespeople will leave if they can't sell.
Well, hiring salespeople is an investment in your company. You're going to have to make that investment, and you're going to have to eat those costs to make it happen.
Yeah.
So there is a substantial cost involved because not every salesperson makes it either.
Right.
My largest competitor would do this. They would bring in these recruiting classes, 15, 20 salespeople at a time, with the goal of keeping one or two. And they would just churn, burn, and abuse the people. That's a lose.
Yeah.
You spend more time hiring and training, and we paid through the training process. We pay the base, and as they advance, they can earn more of a commission. If you're too small to have a sales manager, keep that in mind that a certain percent during the training you can reserve for yourself with the commissions. And as the salesperson grows and becomes more comfortable, their share of the commission could increase. So it's a win for everybody.
Yeah.
This always should be a win, just like when you're helping your customers. It's a win. If you're out, if you're playing a win-loss game, get out of the business.
Yeah. How do you figure out when you came up with your commission structure? First of all, I'm sure you went through multiple iterations of this and did some trial and error. But how did you come up with it to find a sweet spot?
I looked at what the top earner needed to make, and I backed into it using Excel. Really, I was looking at if they needed their take home to be 160 to 200,000. What did I need from them for them to earn it? And looking at it on a per month basis and trying to see based on seasonality what was involved, was it obtainable, and going from there.
Yeah.
And that's how I backed into the numbers, and it was a lot of just plotting things out and taking a look at what was a reasonable expectation. What you don't want to do is pay somebody and then take away commission later.
Yeah.
I grew up in the car business. This would happen all the time. You become the top selling or top grossing salesperson. Your sales manager would come to you and say, "So, Jason, doing such a great job. We worked on a new commission structure for you, new commission plan, and it's going to be so beneficial to you. You're going to love it." You know they were full of shit, and you were going to hate it, and you were making too much money for them. They got greedy, and it was time to go look for another job.
Yeah. I agree with you. You can't take away what you once gave somebody. That's just going to do damage to the relationship. Not to mention their wallets. All right. So trusty Excel came through for you.
Yeah, and it's thinking you have to know your numbers.
Yes.
What's your average job? What are your KPIs there? And then again, certain sales, you may want to pay over the lifetime value of a customer versus the initial sale. Depends who is supporting and managing that account going forward.
That's a good point, because a lot of times sales commissions are at the point of sale or the point of cash collected, which is also wise, by the way. The point of cash collected means you have the money to pay it. And I've seen that a lot. But that's an interesting thought is, the commission is actually X dollars a month because that's the revenue per month from the customer. And that does also incentivize, customer continuation and support, right?
Right. The customer is buying from the salesperson. Now, the customer is buying the company first, the salesperson second, the price third. But the relationship and relationship management is key. If the salesperson is going to be the customer's point of contact, and there's an opportunity to upsell additional services in the future, and you have a constant revenue stream, the question is who's going to manage that revenue stream? Do you want the person contacting the office or a different team, in which case there's probably a commission structure for them? Or do you want it all run through the same point of contact for the customer?
Yeah.
What doesn't work well is, that's an add-on service, so we can take that internally and you have a new person working it. Oh, but that's a new service, so we're going to send the salesperson back or have them call you. And then they're getting at it from both sides. They don't know who to go with. Things get lost in communication, questions that don't get answered, and the customer's not happy.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't liked that. Whenever I deal with a company, I'm like, just give me one email or one person I call. I feel like I have so much more loyalty to a company when I know I can call up a human and they know me by name.
But you get the converse of that is what happens when that person inevitably leaves.
Well, the transition is key. The communication of that, like, that's happened before where it's like, so-and-so is taking over the accounts. That's fine. As long as I still have that one point of contact.
But there needs to be communication.
Yes.
Way too many times in my career, there is none. They just get left hanging.
Yeah, I hate that. God, that's happened to you a lot. I remember.
Angie's listening. Anybody over there, if you're listening, I'm still really ticked.
Oh, boy. He's naming names. No, I know your bank was giving you trouble before. They've given you trouble. Just there's a lot of turnover and a lot of other factors. I mean, you were in the business for 17 years. Of course, there's going to be changes in reps, but, it's all in how you handle it.
Right.
Totally agree. Any other advice, Jason, for people building up their sales team right now or exploring? Maybe they've just been inspired by you to actually, start hiring salespeople.
Again, start by, you can't hire somebody till you have a process. If you're a restaurant, you don't hire a burger cook without putting and developing a burger for your menu. You have to know the ingredients and the proportions and the cook time. So develop your process first. Have a sales pitch first.
Yes.
Record your sales pitch. Then look at bringing salespeople on.
Totally agree. Couldn't agree more, hon. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Finding the right support that you need for your business can be so confusing when it comes to accounting and tax. Sometimes it seems like you can't find a CPA or a tax pro who actually understands your business, or they charge way too much for what you actually need. I've seen this for so many entrepreneurs. They are in a bad relationship with their accountant because they don't know what to look for. It is not your fault. So I created a perfect guide for you that is totally free. It's called the Money Pro Matchmaker, and it will teach you what your pro should be doing, questions you can use to interview them to find the right person for you, and a guide to evaluate them so you know you're getting what you pay for. Do not get stuck or screwed with the wrong accountant. Download the guide now at moneypromatchmaker.com.